And obviously here too is after the out, we want the dog to have that intensity. So today I'm going to be going over a couple of clips that a club from Ecuador sent me. They asked me to go over some of the stuff that they're doing and help them out so that they can progress in the sport of PSA. I've talked to the training director before. He's an excellent trainer. He already has accomplished quite a bit in dog training and in protection training. He's done NVBK, but he's now switching over to PSA, which is an American sport. So it's a brand new experience for them. I'm looking at some of their videos and I'm gonna be making some points here, not to critique just to critique. I was asked to do it and I'm gonna give my feedback and I'm gonna give some pointers along with some videos of me doing some of the stuff that I'm asking them to do so that you guys can see what I'm looking for, what I do in my training, and why I do what I do. So here we have this nice dog. Now the handler is doing a little bit of luring with the ball. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I do that as well from time to time. But what I do see that I would address is there are periods of time where the dog is just kind of dropping his head. As you can see here, like right there, like right there again. Now this happens. Again, I'm going to pause for a little bit. So this happens. It does happen from time to time at trials. But in training, we never want it to happen. And this is one of the things that I tell my club members. When I'm at club with my club members and I see their dogs dropping their heads, I'll tell them, hey, while we're training, your job is to make it as perfect as possible. Whatever you need to do. If you're still in the luring stage, then you lure. If you are a little bit more in the proofing stage where you're adding some pressure, then you address it that way. Whatever you need to do in training, you don't want the dog to do this when they're giving an attention heel. In training, you have to address it because in training, it is the time to address it. In trials, they happen, okay? When you're trialing and there's a lot going on, your dog is in a new location, you're nervous, the dog is excited, there are more distractions that you're used to, distractions that you were not anticipating. So the dog is occasionally gonna check down. You're occasionally gonna lose him here and there. Now I'm talking about PSA, especially the upper levels of PSA, where it becomes incredibly challenging. They're not rehearsed. You know, a lot of the obedience is pretty much surprise scenarios in the upper levels. Because it's going to happen, we want to make it bomb-proof in training. We never want it to happen in training. We never want it to happen too long in training, and this is why we want to address it. Another thing too, I'm going to pause real quick. And I know some of you guys that have not talked to the training director, some of you guys that are not the handlers, some of you guys that maybe train a little bit different, you might be wondering, why is the leash a little bit tight? That's not a problem to me as long as it doesn't affect the training. So a little bit of tension on the leash, you'll see me do it from time to time as well. I want to have that. It's almost like I got the training wheels and I'm just almost micromanaging the dog a little bit. So sometimes I'll do that. That's not a problem. We do want to work towards the leash being loose, but in training we do what we have to do. So we have to have these mechanisms in place, whether that be luring if that's where we are, whether that be a ball in the armpit if that's what we're doing, whether that be a little bit extra tension on the leash if that's what we're doing. We do whatever we need to do in training to make it perfect in training. We proof also. And occasionally, from time to time, we test in training so we know what it'll look like when we actually trial. But the leash itself, I'm not concerned about because it doesn't seem to be the factor here. Okay, it just seems like the dog occasionally is kind of looking down a bit. But everything else, in general, this particular dog has a nice attention heel. So these are the things that I would just work on. I'm going to show you now a couple of videos of me working with my wife's dog. Okay, so in the video that you're going to see here in a moment, I'm handling my wife's dog. So here, starting to lose her. And as I'm losing her, I'm addressing it right away. This is with a choke chain, but I'm letting her know, hey, we gotta pay attention. So there, a little bit of popping. Again, this is mostly micromanaging. Okay, this is just to let her know, hey, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. I do have the reward in the other pocket. And I'm gonna reward her sort of calmly. So instead of just tossing the ball, I'm not gonna just toss the ball because we have a handful of other dogs around me. I'm gonna very calmly, very easy, going to reward her. So in this other clip, same dog, same training session. I'm moving very slow because I want to be focused. I want to be in the moment. So a little bit of tugging there with the leash, light little steps. Very, very focused, in the moment, very present. That's how you want to be when you are training. Okay, and again, I'm going to pay her very, very calmly so that way that ball is not bouncing all over the place. So real quick with that, in those clips that you saw, when I was losing her, I'm like stopping, I'm going, hey, pay attention. You know, we're doing something here. You got to pay attention. What I don't want to do is I don't want to keep walking, lose her, and then, you know, get her back, and then lose her again, and then get her back. I want to let her know, hey, no. We got to pay attention. I want to be involved in every single step of my training. Literally every step. Like if I step forward with my left leg, with my right leg, do I step forward with my left leg first? When I'm doing a heel, do I step forward with my right leg? If I'm leaving the dog, am I going forward? And as I'm going forward, each step is the dog dropping her head? Am I losing her? Where are her eyes? I want to be involved in every step because that's the moment to do it. Okay, the moment to do that is in training. That's why we do that in training, because we are training, because at the trial, you can't do that. So all those hours that go into it, you want to make sure that you capitalize on all those training hours so that when you trial, you're not going to be up here. You're going to lose a little bit due to a number of factors. Distractions, you're nervous, the dog is nervous, anything, the dog is excited. You're going to lose a little bit of that edge there, very likely. Because that's going to happen in training. I want to bring my dog as high as I can, proficiency-wise, so that when I do lose a little bit at the trial, I'm not losing a lot. That's what I want to do. Now we're going to go over the protection work. So I'm going to pause here real quick. Off the bat, this is a nice dog. This is the training director's dog. But here in PSA, now they're new to PSA, so I'm giving feedback for PSA. In PSA, in the carjacking scenario, the judge wants to see a lot of barking. The judge wants to see like woof, woof. They want to see a lot of that agitation prior to the helper, prior to the decoy giving the bite. So the dog here is pretty comfortable, pretty quiet, you know, a little bit in prey. The dog is not threatened. The dog has seen these scenarios in other sport applications, but obviously in PSA, we want the dog to be insane. We want the dog to be just barking at the top of their lungs. That's the feedback that I will give here. Now, the training director, with the experience that he has, can probably figure out how to do that with his teams. This is just feedback that I'm giving them, okay? In carjacking, they have to bark, so you want to make sure that they're barking. Now, if they don't bark, it's not a disqualification. The dog's not going to get disqualified. The team will not automatically fail. But what happens is when your dog is not barking prior to the bite, you're going to lose some points. So you want to have as many points as you possibly can in every scenario, right? Not just because we want to pass, but we want to pass with high distinction. We want to get high level, we want to get as many points as we can in each scenario. So in this scenario, make sure the dog is barking. So good. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Okay, so quick pause right there. So in this one, what I would do is, as the helper, so as the decoy, when the handler is yelling out as the decoy in training, okay, also this happens at the trial, you don't want to be pulling. So if the handler says out as the decoy, I don't want to be pulling away, because all that does is it creates this tension. So you're asking the dog to let it go, but the helper is pulling away, so it creates this weird counter, friction that makes it very difficult for the dog to out as the decoy is pulling. In training, we want to take advantage of every possible environmental tool that we have, okay? The helper, the equipment, whatever it is, we want to take advantage of that. We want to make sure that all the variables are there in our favor. And in training, we can do that. So we might as well do it. So when the handler says out, the helper, the decoy, should not be pulling. They should just kind of stay there. That way it makes it a little bit easier for the dog to out. And in trials, that's what the decoy is going to do. The decoy is not going to be pulling away. They're going to be freezing up. And obviously here too is after the out, we want the dog to have that intensity. So at the trial, the handler can tell the dog to watch him, and that does not count, at least as of this date, okay? Because the rule book does change periodically. But as of this date, the handler can tell the dog, watch him, watch him, watch. So you can tell the dog to alert, and the number of alerts that you give prior to or after the bite, they don't count against you. So you can tell the dog to, to watch him, just to pump your dog up if you need to. Now the outs, they're important. So when you say out in training, you want to give yourself the most advantage. That doesn't mean say out like 10 times. In training, I want to use whatever tools I have available, whatever phase of training I'm in, to ensure that the dog understands when we say out, it has to be immediate. Now, if I have to say it a second time, there has to be a consequence, provided that the dog understands the out. If the dog does not understand the out, we have to go back to the drawing board, because we can't just assume the dog knows something that they're already very inconsistent with. If the dog is consistently unreliable and consistently just missing the mark when it comes to the out, that's an indication that the dog doesn't know it. But if the dog knows it, we want to make sure the dog knows, hey, you have to out. Again, in training, you have to do the best that you can to make it perfect as you need to, as perfect as you can make it, because at the trial, things get a little bit trickier. So you have to make it perfect in training. Now this other dog right here, nice alert, nice bite. Okay, so that was a good out. So it was Draco Aus, OPA. The one thing we have to be careful with is with the additional OPA. So it's Draco Aus, OPA, OPA. In training, again, as perfect as we can. The less amount of cues we give, the better. If we have to give additional cues, that's fine too if we need to in training, but we need to do it in a way that the dog understands. I should only tell you the cue one time. I can help you if you need help, but that help comes with a little bit of cost, and that cost might be a little bit of pressure. That cost might be you don't get paid as fast. Whatever it is, we have to let the dog know, look, I'm going to help you, and we have to do it perfect, but if it's not perfect and you're capable of doing it perfect, meaning you are proficient, but you're not doing it as proficiently, I'll help you, but there is a little bit of a cost when I help you, and whatever that might be for that team. But anyway, I always want to let the dog know, if you can do it well, you have to do it well. So you'll see the dog here. Good, that was nice. Good. So what I like to do, I'm going to put a video on that too, is when I train for that scenario, I don't want to sacrifice my heel. So in order to not sacrifice your heel, what I'll do is I'll put the dog on a static heel. I'm going to put a video into this so you can see what I'm talking about. So you'll see the dog actually knowing, here's my bite, okay, the decoy is right there. I just have to sit perfect, and that's my reward. And then gradually we bring the decoy farther and farther back. That's how I train for the attack from the rear. So I start here so the dog knows the decoy's right there, but I gotta look at mom or dad, and then yes, bite. Then gradually we're gonna move the decoy farther and farther back so the dog already knows, okay, I give you this perfect heel, bite when mom or dad tells me, yes, you can go bite, or packing, or stelling, whatever it is. And then that way I don't sacrifice my heel. It actually intensifies my heel. It lets the dog know, if I give you a really perfect heel, I know mom or dad is going to reward me with that bite command. So for the attack from the rear, I love to do that, because that way it reinforces the really beautiful heel, because the dog knows, if I give you a beautiful heel, you're going to reward me with a bite. So that way we don't sacrifice the heel, and we also maintain that nice attack from the rear.